In the spring of 1847, when rescue parties finally reached the snowbound cabins of the Donner Party, they found a scene from hell. Human bones lay scattered among the frozen remains of the dead. Survivors, hollow-eyed and spectral, had resorted to the unthinkable. Of the 87 pioneers who had set out for California, only 48 would live to see the promised land. The rest had perished in the Sierra Nevada, their bodies consumed by their own companions in a desperate bid for survival. This is not a story of adventure and discovery, but of a slow, agonizing descent into madness and despair. The Donner Party's name would become synonymous with the darkest extremes of human endurance. Their journey, begun with hope and ambition, ended in a nightmare that still haunts the American imagination. What drove these ordinary families to such extraordinary measures? The answer lies in a series of fateful decisions, relentless nature, and the fragile thread of human morality. The Donner Party was not a single expedition, but a group of families and individuals who joined together for the journey west. In the spring of 1846, the promise of fertile land in California drew them from the farms and towns of the Midwest. Among them were the Donner brothers, George and Jacob, prosperous farmers leading their families. There was James Reed, an ambitious businessman, and his wife Margaret. They were not desperados, but ordinary people, men, women, and children, seeking a better life. The era of manifest destiny was in full swing, and the Oregon Trail was choked with emigrants. But the Donner Party sought a shortcut, a rumored route that would cut weeks off the journey. This shortcut, known as the Hastings Cutoff, was promoted by a man named Lansford Hastings, who had never actually traveled it himself. The pioneers, filled with optimism and trust in printed guides, set out from Independence, Missouri in May 1846. They had no idea that their dream would become a nightmare. The journey began with hope and excitement. The Donner Party, numbering around 87 people in 23 wagons, rolled westward across the vast plains. They followed the well-worn Oregon Trail, passing through Fort Kearny and Fort Laramie. The days were long, the terrain monotonous, but spirits remained high. Children played alongside the wagons, and evenings were filled with songs and stories. By July, they had reached the Little Sandy River in present-day Wyoming. Here, they faced a crucial choice: continue on the established trail or take the untested Hastings Cutoff. The cutoff promised to save 350 miles, but it was a gamble. James Reed, swayed by Hastings' book, argued for the shortcut. Others were hesitant, but the promise of faster passage to California was alluring. On July 20th, the majority voted to take the cutoff. They sent a messenger ahead to find Hastings and guide them through the unknown terrain. It was a decision that would seal their doom, though no one knew it then. The first warning signs appeared almost immediately. The Hastings Cutoff was not a clear road, but a treacherous path through the Wasatch Mountains. The party had to hack through dense forests, cross rugged canyons, and navigate rocky terrain that slowed their progress to a crawl. Instead of saving time, they were losing it. Lansford Hastings, who was supposed to guide them, had already left with another group, leaving only vague directions. The Donner Party became lost, wandering for weeks in the Utah wilderness. They encountered a massive canyon, now known as Weber Canyon, which was impassable for wagons. They had to backtrack and find another route, wasting precious days. Food and water supplies began to dwindle, tempers frayed. A man named Luke Holleran died of tuberculosis, a grim omen of what was to come. Yet still, the pioneers pressed on, believing that once they crossed the mountains, the worst would be over. They were tragically mistaken. By late August, the Donner Party had finally emerged from the Wasatch Mountains and crossed the Great Salt Lake Desert. The desert crossing was brutal: scorching heat, alkali dust, and scarce water. Several wagons broke down and livestock died, but they pushed on. In early September, they reached the Humboldt River in Nevada, a lifeline that would lead them to the Sierra Nevada. The landscape changed from desert to sagebrush plains, and the travelers felt a glimmer of hope. They were making progress, albeit slowly. Teamwork became essential. Families shared resources and helped each other repair wagons. The children, though tired, still played, but the delays had taken a toll. It was already mid-October when they approached the Sierra Nevada. Normally, the mountains should have been crossed by early October. The pioneers knew they were late, but they believed they could still make it. The first snow flurries appeared on the peaks, a silent warning that winter was coming. The crisis came to a head at the foot of the Sierra Nevada. On October 28, 1846, the party reached Truckee Lake, now known as Donner Lake. The pass ahead was already covered in several feet of snow. They had two choices: attempt to cross immediately or wait out the winter. Attempting to cross now seemed impossible, but waiting meant certain starvation. The group was exhausted, short on food, and ill-equipped for a mountain winter. A few families forged ahead, trying to force the pass, but were turned back by deep drifts. They built makeshift cabins at the lake and at Alder Creek a few miles away. James Reed, after a violent quarrel, had been banished earlier and was ahead with a small party. The remaining 81 people settled in for what they hoped would be a short stay. But the snow kept falling, day after day, piling higher than the rooftops. They were trapped, and the only way out was through the mountains that had become their prison. By December, the situation was desperate. Food ran out, and the pioneers ate their oxen, then their horses, then the hides and bones. They boiled leather and ate bark. When even that was gone, starvation set in. A group of 17 men, women, and children, the Forlorn Hope, attempted to cross the mountains on improvised snowshoes. They were woefully unprepared. After weeks of struggle, lost and starving, they began to die. One by one, they succumbed to cold and hunger. In a final horrific act, the survivors resorted to cannibalism, consuming the flesh of their dead companions to stay alive. Out of the 17, only 7 emerged from the mountains, their story too terrible to tell. Back at the cabins, the living conditions deteriorated. Sickness spread, and death became a daily occurrence. The snow had buried the cabins, forcing the survivors to live in darkness. They burned the cabins themselves for warmth. The worst was yet to come. The peak of horror came in January and February of 1847. At the cabins, the survivors had eaten every animal, every scrap of leather, and even the blankets. They boiled bones for broth. The dead were no longer buried. They were preserved in the snow for later use. Cannibalism became a grim reality. Some refused to partake and died. Others, driven mad by hunger, lost all sense of morality. One mother, Mrs. Eddy, watched her children die and then in desperation ate their flesh. The snow continued to fall, reaching depths of over 20 feet. Rescue parties from California tried to reach them but were turned back by the weather. Inside the cabins, the living huddled with the dead. The stench was unbearable. Hope was fading. Then, in late February, the first rescue party finally broke through. They found survivors in a state beyond description, emaciated, frostbitten, and mentally broken. The rescuers wept at the sight. The rescue came in 4 separate expeditions from February to April 1847. The first party found 21 survivors at Truckee Lake and 9 at Alder Creek. They led them out, but the journey was perilous. Some died on the trail. The rescuers themselves were horrified by what they saw, survivors carrying bundles of human flesh, children with frostbitten limbs. The second rescue party arrived to find more death. The third party, led by James Reed, who had made it to California, returned to find his wife and children alive, but his mother dead. The final rescue in April found only one survivor, Louis Keseberg, surrounded by the remains of the dead. He was accused of murder and cannibalism, but he claimed the others had died naturally. In total, 48 of the original 87 survived. The rest had perished from starvation, exposure, and disease. The rescue was over, but the trauma would last a lifetime. The Donner Party has become a dark legend in American history, a cautionary tale of ambition, hubris, and the fragility of civilization. Their story is not just one of suffering, but of the human will to survive against impossible odds. The decisions made, the shortcut, the delay, the attempt to cross, echo through time as a reminder that nature is unforgiving. Today, Donner Lake and the surrounding area are a memorial to those who endured. Their names are etched in history: Donner, Reed, Breen, Murphy, Eddy. The controversy over cannibalism still sparks debate. Was it a necessary evil or a descent into savagery? The Donner Party's legacy is a mirror held up to our own morality. If you found this documentary compelling, subscribe to Doomed Expeditions for more stories of human endurance and tragedy. Share your thoughts in the comments. Could you have made the same choices?